Dara Donnelly. Thank you very much for coming. She will appear in around 1 hour in Edit Cinemas, as she is part of the documentary I Used to Be Normal. There is a documentary about fans of boyband fans. And for tonight, we wanted to invite you, as we are talking about the limits, about the periphery of the cultural and music. There's something that has never been treated with the respect that has been the fun. As fun is the basis of the music relation. Sometimes you can get into obsession, okay, or sometimes you can get into other cross other limits. But the real basic, I think, is this one, and has been always not treated so respectfully. Do you think?
I think it varies between genres. Fans have been in existence for a very, very long time. My particular area of expertise is in the world of boy bands. Do you understand what a boy band is? It's cross-cultural, fantastic. And I think the understanding of a boy band fan, because it is so commercially driven, I think boy band fans have a lot of respect from like a band management point of view. Definitely, because they know they're all just creating this hype hysteria so the 14-year-old girls can buy the merchandise and buy the tickets and make the big executives a lot of money. I think with regards to fans of other genres, it's an interesting question. It's an interesting question that you say that there isn't respect. It hasn't been my experience, but I think that's because my experience is limited to this small genre. But I think what it means to be a fan is it's quite exposing, right? So if you actually say you're a fan of something, anything, be it music or Star Wars, whatever it is, you're actually saying to someone, this is a little bit of a part of me that I feel like it completes me. And that can open you up to a bit of shame, a bit of ridicule, because maybe other people in the world don't like that particular music. I saw an amazing documentary last night about Joan Jett, and to be a fan of her music at that time, maybe as a woman, would have opened you up to a certain amount of ridicule and shame as well, because maybe I like this kind of music, so that means that you're a punk rocker, kind of hardcore feminist or whatever, and open yourself up to ridicule there. In terms of what fans, I think where they hold value is they keep the musicians going, they're the ones buying the tickets, buying the merch, streaming the downloads, and if it wasn't for the fans, then the musicians wouldn't exist. I think that's pretty obvious. But what I find most interesting is this idea of naming that you're a fan of something and then being proud about it and to not be ashamed of this, whatever genre that means. It's kind of...
Could you share with us a bit more about your fan case?
Sure. So boy bands are a very unique type of music. I understand it gets a lot of ridicule internationally anyway, because it is so generally manufactured. You've got these, I find the formula fascinating, right? You've got 5 boys, each with varying, slightly different haircuts so that you can tell them apart. Each one has a particular type of personality. You've got the kind of the dad one of the group, you've got the cute one, you've got the sexy one, you've got the one that no one ever remembers. It's a pretty standard formula. Boy bands don't play instruments. If you're ever confused about boys in a band or a boy band, if they play instruments, disqualified. They're not a boy band. I love this particular type of music because it's really heart-opening, and the choruses and the music is designed to make you get up and dance and feel like everything's okay. And as a 35-year-old, I still get immense joy out of that kind of music because, yeah, I have the off day every once in a while, and it's nice to just go, I'm going to put on some Backstreet Boys today, and I'm going to just pretend it's the 90s, and I'm going to just, like, rock out. This particular type of music is a source, I think, of a lot of shame for people, especially in my age. So boy bands, when I was in a late teenager, I think boy bands were at the height of everything. So it was Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, X17, Take That, all these bands that were manufactured at that particular time. And a lot of people kept it undercover, because especially as a woman, I think that men or boys at school, whatever, would kind of ridicule us if we were really into that. So it was just like something we kept to ourselves. And that's interesting as I go on the tour of this documentary, that I get, people who are my age come up to me and say, wow, thank you for validating the fact that I'm into this. I've been holding this in for 20 years myself, and now you're just going out telling everyone you're really into boy bands. Like, wow, that's awesome, thank you. And it's validating for other people as well, which I find really heartwarming. I think it's, at the end of the day, just be into what you want to be into and don't care what anyone else thinks about it. Like, whatever genre of music or whatever fan thing you want to be into, as long as it kind of completes you in some way, opens your heart and makes your day a bit better, totally fine.
Do you think, I assume that fan phenomena will always exist, probably, because you always will get a relation with the artist. Do you think that boy bands will keep existing, that kind of fan relation?
Yeah.
It's something that will renew
my God,
generation?
It will never die. It is a commercial success for once and for all. So, the music industry people are like, let's just churn this out. The other thing is, I had a very interesting discussion with a friend of mine who takes adults into nature, right? Adults who are on their phones all the time, working, they go out into nature. And in Australia, this process is called rewilding, to rewild yourself, right? So she takes these adults out and, into an open field or something, and all of a sudden these adults feel like complete. And the way that she describes it, it's because all of a sudden their outside world matches their inside world. Because as adults, we have this vast kind of expanse of possibility within us. We translate that to the idea of the hysterical 14-year-old girl who kind of goes along to an equally hysterical boy band concert, and inside her brain and everything, it's emotions and craziness and so much is going on, and she goes to a boy band concert and her external environment is craziness and hecticness and loudness, and she feels complete because her inside world matches her outside world. So I think the reason why boy bands will continue to exist, and especially in the realm of stadiums and hysteria, is because girls, and that, I think girls in particular, maybe boys as well, but they need an outlet, they need to know that it's okay to just get crazy and emotional and hysterical and let it all out, and it's a process, and that's the safe space where they do that. I don't know anywhere else, for girls particularly, where that's allowed. I think for boys it's allowed in a sporting arena, maybe fathers take their sons to football matches and they can get hysterical and loud and swear and get crazy, but there's no safe space for the girl to do that. So I think that's why boy bands will continue to exist. It's a long-winded answer.
Also, it's I'm going to do some little spoiler of the documentary, but there's a moment that I really love, and it connects you to the relation that you have as a brand strategist, and you talk about that boy band theory. Could you share a little bit of what's that boy band theory?
Sure. So I'm a brand strategist, so I create stories for brands, and I love unpicking what is the personality of the brand, or what is the human element of a brand that makes us want to be with it. And the filmmakers said to me, I've talked about boyband theory to anyone who listened, basically, and they were like, if we just put you in a room with 2 whiteboards and some markers, can you just teach us boyband theory? And I was like, guys, I got this, no worries, bring your cameras, I'll do it. So if you see the film, there's a scene of me literally on a whiteboard explaining boyband theory, and it's similar to what I said before. It's just like the formula of 5 boys and the personalities, and what I find really interesting is the topics of the lyrics. So nothing too sexual. So I don't know if you know the band Boyz II Men. It was kind of in the 90s, American band. They were just singing a little bit. It was just too much about sex, really. So it kind of disqualifies them from the boy band world, because you want the reason why boy bands, they're kind of safe. The lyrics have to be quite safe. It's because the mums are like vetting this, or they're kind of approving this music. So they need to know that, oh yeah, they're just singing about going to a party, or they're just singing about holding hands, things like this. There's something else really interesting about this, which is why I think that boy bands are kind of a central idea to potential world peace, and that is that the message through a lot of the bands, through a lot of the lyrics, is all about acceptance. So it's like, hey, you're beautiful just the way you are. You don't go changing. I see you. You're beautiful. Let's go out. Don't worry what they say. It's just you and me, babe. There's this whole thing which I think as a 14-year-old is really important to hear. It's really validating. Maybe you're being all like crazy, and you can't really, emotionally at that time don't really know what's going on, hormones and boys, and then you've got this beautiful. You've got 5 beautiful boys looking directly at you, saying you're amazing, babe. And I think it's really empowering as a strategy for female empowerment. Boy bands, I'm telling you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Do anybody in the room wants to make any questions or share any thought with her?
What would you say was the first boy band ever?
You'll have to see the documentary.
Yeah.
Should I spoil it? Well, it depends. I think foundational boy bands are the Beatles.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of people. I've had a lot of people come up to me and argue that they are not a boy band. Like, they play instruments, right? They write their own songs. But if you think about them, the hair, the matching their suits, what they talk, what they sing about in the early days, the choreography, all of it, it's foundational boy band. I wouldn't say that they are a boy band, but they go on to kind of set the tone. Then we've got like the Monkeys, and then we've got New Kids on the Block and Backstreet Boys. It all kind of starts to build.
And also because of the reaction of
the hysteria, of course. Yeah, absolutely. There's there's 4 women in the documentary. The next woman, who's older than me, she's in her 60s, and she's the Beatles fan, and she talks about that at her age and that time, everything was very restricted. It was all, you need to act a certain way as a woman and be the housewife. And then we've got, go to a Beatles concert and you can literally pull your hair out and get hysterical and not hear the music. You're just screaming the whole time. And I think this is really important, that it does match the hysterical freedom element.
I don't want to put you in trouble now, but maybe I will give you an idea for a sequel for the next
Sequel, yes.
It's about, what do you think about the same theory about boy bands applied for girl bands?
Right.
Because that's why I'm giving you kind of editorial for the next one, but maybe I can give you your opinion about it, because we have kind of some conditions are the same about what
Sure.
boy band theory, but not quite.
I know nothing about girl bands because
No, that's why I
they
said I don't
are.
want to put you in trouble.
Oh my gosh, they're a whole different breed. But what I do know is, you're right. So you've got the personality types. got lots of focus on the hair. Like there's so much hair focus. But the thing that changes, I believe, is the messaging, right? So I said before, the boy bands are all like, hey babe, you're beautiful, don't go changing. Where I find that the girl band message is, don't worry about that boy, you know, boys suck. Let's go over here and let's cause trouble. Like it's a different energy, like that I don't necessarily think is sustainable. Like if you think girl bands versus boy bands into the future, I reckon boy bands are going to outlive girl bands for sure, because I think it's kind of a bit rebellious, or it's the girl band message. I think it's be a very, very interesting sequel to the documentary for sure. I'm not the expert to ask.
Any other question? Well, thank you very much. I'm really happy that you shared with us your time, because as cultural managers, we are always used to talk about just building projects, and we forget the fans that are the basis of everything. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.